What did the soccer moms do when they found out the new coach was a single dad? They started a whisper campaign within 48 hours of my first practice session. I found out from my daughter Maya when she climbed into my truck after school on Thursday, her face red and blotchy from crying. She was 10 years old and had been begging me for months to let her join the local youth soccer league after we moved to Riverside following the divorce. I'd finally scraped together the registration fee and bought her cleats from the thrift store, and she'd been so excited for her first week of practice that she'd slept in her team jersey the night before. "They're saying you're a creep, Dad," Maya said, her voice small and broken in a way that made my chest physically hurt. Sienna's mom told all the other moms that single men shouldn't be around little girls, and now nobody will pass me the ball during drills. I pulled over into a parking lot because my hands were shaking too hard to drive safely. Maya explained through tears that during practice, 3 mothers had approached the assistant coach demanding to know why the league had hired a single father as head coach without proper background checks. They'd started a group chat called Riverside Soccer Safety and added every parent except me. I was 36 years old and had coached youth sports for 8 years before my ex-wife Elena got custody and moved Maya 3 states away. When we'd relocated to Riverside 6 months ago after I finally got shared custody back, I'd volunteered to coach Maya's team because the league was desperate for volunteers and I had actual certifications. I'd passed background checks, submitted references, completed safe sport training, everything by the book. But apparently, none of that mattered because I was a man coaching girls. The head of the parents' committee was named Vanessa Holbrook, and she called me that evening while I was making Maya's dinner. Her voice was syrupy sweet in that particular way that makes your skin crawl because you know something terrible is coming underneath. "Mr. Kovac, we need to discuss some concerns that have been raised about your position with the team. Nothing official, just parent feedback that we take very seriously." I asked what specific concerns, and there was a long pause before she said that several mothers felt uncomfortable with a single man being alone with their daughters. "I'm never alone with anyone," I said, keeping my voice level even though I wanted to scream. "There's always an assistant coach present, and parents are welcome to stay for every practice. Those are league rules I follow exactly." Vanessa made a humming sound like she didn't quite believe me. "Still, perception matters in youth sports. We're going to need you to agree to some additional supervision measures, just to make everyone feel safer." The way she said safer made clear she thought I was dangerous, that my presence required special precautions like I was a registered offender instead of a dad trying to coach his daughter's team. The additional measures arrived in an email the next morning. I had to agree to never arrive at practice before parents were present, never stay after parents had left, never give individual coaching without another adult present, never touch any player for any reason including high fives or helping with equipment, and submit to random spot checks by parent volunteers. The restrictions were humiliating and went far beyond league requirements, but when I called the league director, he sighed and said the parents' committee had threatened to pull their kids if I didn't comply. 42 players on 6 teams, registration fees the league couldn't afford to lose. I agreed to everything because refusing would mean Maya couldn't play, and she'd already lost so much in the divorce. But that weekend at our first game, 3 mothers showed up with clipboards and pens, positioning themselves around the field like sentries. Every time I gave instructions to a player, they wrote something down. When I called out formations, they whispered to each other and made more notes. At halftime, one of them took photos of me talking to my assistant coach, a 60-year-old retired teacher named Dorothy, who'd been coaching youth sports since before I was born. Maya's team lost that game badly because half the girls were too nervous to focus, constantly looking at their mothers instead of the ball. After the game, I heard one mother tell her daughter that she didn't have to listen to anything that man said if it made her uncomfortable. The girl was 8 years old and had no idea what uncomfortable meant in that context. But now she'd been taught that her coach was someone to fear instead of someone trying to help her learn a sport she'd signed up to play. The group chat I wasn't part of became an evidence-gathering operation. I found out from Dorothy that parents were sharing screenshots of me at practices with commentary about body language and proximity to players. One mother posted a photo of me adjusting a goal net with the caption, "Why is he so focused on equipment?" Another shared a video of me demonstrating a throw-in technique with, "Notice how he keeps looking at the girls?" The implication was sickening because I was literally just coaching soccer, but they decided I was a predator, and now everything I did got filtered through that lens. 3 weeks into the season, Maya stopped wanting to go to practice. She'd developed anxiety about what the other girls' mothers would say, about whether anyone would talk to her, about whether I'd get in trouble for something. She started having stomach aches before games and would cry in the bathroom at the soccer complex. I watched my daughter's joy in playing soccer get destroyed by adults who decided to project their fears onto a situation that had zero evidence of actual danger. The irony was brutal because I'd fought for 2 years to get shared custody specifically, so I could be more involved in Maya's life. Then Vanessa escalated things with an email to the entire parents list, claiming she'd received multiple reports of inappropriate conduct. The email didn't specify what conduct or from whom, just vague language about players feeling uncomfortable and parents having valid concerns. It ended with a demand that I step down voluntarily or face a formal complaint to the league. I called her immediately, and she wouldn't answer, sent me to voicemail 3 times before finally responding via text. I think it's best we keep communication in writing for everyone's protection. Dorothy called me that night furious because she'd been questioned by Vanessa about my conduct during practices. They asked me if I'd ever seen you touch the girls inappropriately, Dorothy said, her voice shaking with anger. I told them you've been nothing but professional, and that this whole thing is a witch hunt. And Vanessa actually told me I was being naive about predators. Like I haven't been around children for 40 years and can't recognize inappropriate behavior when I see it. She paused, and I heard her take a breath. Noah, they're going to keep pushing until you quit. This isn't about actual safety. This is about power. I started documenting everything with the kind of paranoia that comes from knowing people are actively trying to destroy you. I bought a body camera that I wore to every practice and game, filming everything to protect myself from false accusations. I stopped giving any individual feedback to players, just general instructions to the whole group. I never made eye contact with anyone except Maya and Dorothy. I became a robot going through coaching motions without any of the mentorship or encouragement that makes youth sports valuable, because showing any personality or connection with players would be twisted into evidence of inappropriate behavior. The breaking point came 4 weeks into the season during a practice on a Wednesday evening. One of the players, a girl named Olivia, who was actually talented and loved playing, asked me for help with her corner kicks. I told her I couldn't work with her one-on-one per the parent committee rules, but I could demonstrate the technique for the whole team if she wanted to watch. Olivia's mother, Stephanie, materialized beside me instantly, putting herself between me and her daughter, like I'd threatened violence. Olivia, come here right now. We don't ask him for help. The disgust in Stephanie's voice when she said him made something crack inside me. I'd been professional and patient for a month while being treated like a criminal, but watching this woman teach her daughter to fear me for literally no reason broke whatever restraint I'd been maintaining. I'm trying to help your daughter learn soccer, I said, my voice louder than intended. That's what coaches do. If you have actual evidence that I've done something wrong, report it to the league. Otherwise, stop poisoning your kid against someone who's volunteering his time to help her. Stephanie pulled out her phone and started recording. Are you threatening me? Everyone needs to hear this, how aggressive he gets when questioned. Other mothers converged immediately, forming a protective circle around Stephanie like I'd physically attacked her. Maya was on the field watching this unfold, and I saw her face crumple as she realized her dad was at the center of another scene. Dorothy tried to intervene, explaining that I'd simply asked for evidence, but the mothers talked over her, their voices getting louder and more theatrical. I want him removed immediately, Stephanie announced to the group. My daughter isn't safe with him in charge. 3 other mothers agreed loudly. One started filming me on her phone, capturing my reaction for their evidence file. I stood there with my hands at my sides, not saying anything, because any word would be used against me. Maya walked off the field crying, and I wanted to follow her, but knew that leaving practice early would be marked as abandonment or proof I couldn't handle pressure. I was trapped in a scenario where every choice was wrong. That evening, I received an email from the league director asking me to attend a meeting the following Monday with the parents' committee and league board. The email used words like concerns and investigation, and recommended I bring a witness. I forwarded everything to my lawyer, a woman named Judith Kwan, who'd handled my custody case. She read through the group chat screenshots Dorothy had saved, and the documented restrictions and the accusatory emails, and her expression grew darker with each page. This is a coordinated harassment campaign designed to force you out. The question is whether we fight it, or whether you just resign to protect Maya from further trauma. I didn't want to resign because that would validate their accusations, make it look like I'd done something wrong and was slinking away before being caught. But I also couldn't watch Maya suffer through more weeks of this social torture, where other girls avoided her because their mothers had decided her father was dangerous. That weekend, Maya asked me quietly if we could move again, maybe go somewhere nobody knew us. She was 10 years old and already learning that her father's presence in her life would make things harder for her, that having a dad who wanted to be involved was a liability instead of a blessing. The meeting Monday night was held at the community center in a room with fluorescent lights that made everyone look slightly ill. The parents' committee consisted of 5 women, including Vanessa and Stephanie, all of them dressed like they were attending a corporate board meeting instead of a youth soccer discussion. The league board was 3 people. The director, a woman named Patricia who ran registration, and a man named Gary who handled field maintenance. I sat across from them with Judith beside me and Dorothy in the chair behind us for support. Vanessa opened by reading from a prepared statement about the committee's obligation to prioritize player safety above all other considerations. She used the phrase red flags 7 times in 3 minutes, citing my volunteer position, my single father status, my enthusiasm about coaching, and my defensive reaction when questioned. Everything that made me a good coach got reframed as evidence of predatory behavior. The other committee members nodded along while taking notes, building their case in real time. What specific inappropriate actions has my client committed? Judith asked, when Vanessa finally paused. You've described feelings and perceptions, but what actual policy violations or misconduct occurred? The committee members exchanged glances before Vanessa responded that feelings and perceptions were valid concerns that required action. Judith tried again, asking for even one concrete example of Noah doing something wrong, and the silence stretched for 15 seconds before Stephanie spoke up. He argued with me when I protected my daughter. That aggression is concerning given his position of power over these girls. Judith pulled out her phone and played Dorothy's video of the incident, which clearly showed me speaking in a normal voice while asking for evidence, followed by Stephanie immediately pulling out her phone and making accusations. "That's not aggression," Judith said calmly. "That's a volunteer coach asking to be treated fairly after a month of documented harassment by parents who've provided zero evidence of actual misconduct." The league director looked uncomfortable as Judith presented the timeline. The whisper campaign starting within days, the excessive restrictions imposed on Noah alone, the group chat coordinating surveillance, the photos and videos collected as supposed evidence. She pulled up screenshots showing mothers analyzing my body language and inventing sinister motives for normal coaching activities. "This isn't about child safety," Judith said. "This is about a group of parents who decided a single father shouldn't coach girls and are now manufacturing justification after the fact." Vanessa's face flushed red, and she started talking about mothers' intuition and the responsibility to err on the side of caution when children were involved. "We have every right to question someone's suitability for coaching our daughters, especially when that person is a single man with suspicious enthusiasm for being around little girls." The way she said suspicious enthusiasm made it clear what she was really accusing me of, the words that nobody wanted to say out loud, but everyone was thinking. "Noah has coaching certifications, passed background checks, completed safe sport training, and has 8 years of experience coaching youth sports with zero complaints," Judith countered. "He volunteered because his daughter wanted to play, and the league needed coaches. Every single restriction you've imposed goes beyond league policy and specifically targets him for being male. This isn't safety protocol. This is gender discrimination and defamation." She turned to the league board. "My client will resign effective immediately to protect his daughter from further harassment, but we're documenting everything, and if anyone continues spreading false accusations, we'll pursue legal action." I stood up because I couldn't sit there anymore listening to people debate whether I was a predator. "I just wanted to coach my daughter's soccer team," I said, and my voice cracked, despite trying to stay composed. "I wanted to help her feel confident and make friends and learn teamwork. That's it. But you've decided I'm dangerous because I'm a single father, and nothing I do can change your mind because you're not actually looking at evidence. You're looking at me through a lens of suspicion that turns every normal action into something sinister." Maya was waiting in the hallway with Dorothy, and when we walked out, she looked at my face and knew it was over. "I don't have to play soccer anymore, Dad. We can do something else." The fact that my 10-year-old daughter was trying to comfort me about losing the ability to coach her made me want to put my fist through a wall. We drove home in silence, and I made her favorite dinner, even though neither of us could eat, both of us processing that we'd just lost something we couldn't get back. The resignation letter I sent that night was brief and professional, stating I was stepping down to focus on family obligations. Vanessa forwarded it to the parents list within 10 minutes, with a message saying the committee's persistence had protected the players from potential danger. She framed my resignation as proof they'd been right all along, that their investigation had forced out someone with concerning behavior. The narrative they'd been building for weeks solidified into accepted truth, despite having zero factual basis. Maya withdrew from the team the next day. We tried to talk about her continuing without me coaching, but she'd developed such anxiety about the other mothers and girls that going back felt impossible. I called the registration office about a refund, and Patricia said resignations didn't qualify. So I'd spent $300 I couldn't really afford for Maya to experience 5 weeks of social torture before quitting a sport she'd been excited about. The money hurt less than watching her joy get crushed by adults who should have known better. The story spread through Riverside's parent networks within days. I'd see women at the grocery store recognize me and grab their children's hands, pulling them closer like I might snatch them from the cereal aisle. A mother at Maya's school requested she be moved out of the class they shared with her daughter. The soccer complex banned me from the grounds entirely after Vanessa claimed I'd been harassing committee members, which meant I couldn't even watch other games. The accusation of harassment was based on Judith's legal threat, twisted into evidence that I was dangerous enough to require a protection order. My employer, a commercial real estate company where I worked in property management, called me into HR 2 weeks later. Someone had emailed them anonymously about my concerning behavior around children at the soccer league, suggesting they might want to investigate what kind of person they'd hired. HR couldn't fire me based on anonymous accusations, but they moved me to a different property portfolio that had zero family housing, eliminating any possible contact with children. The demotion came with a pay cut justified as matching my new responsibilities. Judith wanted to pursue legal action, file defamation suits against Vanessa and Stephanie and anyone else who'd spread false accusations. She had evidence of the coordination, the manufactured narrative, the documented harassment, but litigation would take years and tens of thousands of dollars I didn't have, and it would keep Maya's name in the spotlight of a story she needed to move past. I told Judith to send cease and desist letters warning against further defamation, but otherwise, let it go. Some battles aren't worth winning if the cost is your kid's mental health. Maya started therapy 3 weeks after quitting soccer, seeing a child psychologist named Dr. Reeves, who specialized in anxiety and social trauma. In their 3rd session, Maya told Dr. Reeves she felt guilty for asking me to coach because now people thought her dad was bad. She said sometimes at school girls would whisper and look at her and she knew they were talking about the soccer situation. Dr. Reeves worked with Maya on strategies for managing anxiety and rebuilding confidence, but she also told me privately that Maya had developed a fear that her relationship with me would cause problems wherever we went. The isolation was suffocating in ways I hadn't expected. I'd moved to Riverside specifically to be near Maya after the custody fight, but now every interaction with other parents felt poisoned by suspicion. I stopped going to school events because my presence made other parents uncomfortable. I avoided parks and playgrounds even when Maya wanted to go. I became invisible in my daughter's life outside our home, the opposite of the involved father I'd fought to become. The bitter irony was that I'd spent 2 years and $30,000 in legal fees to get custody, and now I couldn't actually participate in Maya's world without being treated like a threat. Then Maya's best friend, Leah's mother, a woman named Crystal, who'd always been friendly before, blocked my number and sent a message through Maya that Leah couldn't come over anymore. No explanation, just a sudden end to a friendship that had helped Maya adjust to Riverside. When I asked Maya what happened, she said Leah told her that Leah's mom had joined a Facebook group about protecting kids from predators, and my name had come up in a discussion about the soccer situation. The story had evolved in the retelling until I wasn't just a coach who'd resigned, I was someone who'd been removed for inappropriate conduct. I hired a reputation management company called Digital Defense to scrub my name from online discussions and monitor for defamatory content. They found posts in 3 different Facebook groups calling me a predator, screenshots of Vanessa's emails being shared as evidence, and speculation about why I'd really been forced to resign. None of it was true, but truth didn't matter when the narrative was already established. Digital Defense sent takedown requests and threatened legal action, getting most posts removed. But screenshots lived forever, and every deletion just convinced people there was something being covered up. 4 months after resigning from coaching, I got a call from Elena, my ex-wife, asking if we needed to revisit custody arrangements given my situation with accusations. Someone had sent her screenshots of the Facebook discussions, along with Vanessa's email about my resignation. Elena said she wasn't making any changes yet, but she wanted me to understand that if there was any truth to the concerns, she'd file for sole custody immediately. The fact that even my ex-wife, who knew me better than almost anyone, was hedging on whether I might be dangerous made me understand how thoroughly my reputation had been destroyed. Maya's grades dropped that semester from A's and B's to C's and D's. Her teacher mentioned in an email that she seemed distracted and anxious, asking if anything had changed at home. Everything had changed, but I couldn't explain that my daughter was traumatized by watching her father be accused of being a predator for trying to coach her soccer team. The school counselor recommended family therapy in addition to Maya's individual sessions, so I added another weekly appointment and another copay I could barely afford after the pay cut. Then something shifted. Dorothy called me on a Saturday morning 6 months after I'd resigned, her voice tight with controlled anger. Vanessa Holbrook's husband just got arrested, domestic violence and child endangerment. Apparently, he'd been abusing their son for years, and Vanessa knew but didn't report it. The police found evidence she'd been covering for him, even destroyed photos of injuries. Dorothy paused to let that information sink in. The woman who spent months accusing you of being dangerous was literally protecting an actual abuser in her own home. The news hit Riverside's parent networks like a bomb. Vanessa had been the face of child protection, the mother who'd led the campaign against me for player safety. Now police reports showed she'd enabled her husband's abuse of their own child while projecting that fear and guilt onto me. The hypocrisy was stunning. But what made me sick was thinking about that boy suffering while his mother was busy manufacturing accusations against a soccer coach. Other parents started questioning whether Vanessa's crusade against me had been psychological projection, attacking someone safe to avoid confronting the actual danger in her home. Stephanie, one of the other committee members who'd pushed hardest for my removal, called me 2 days after Vanessa's arrest. She apologized with the kind of careful language people use when they know they might be legally liable for their actions. I got caught up in the group dynamics and didn't question the narrative we were building. I should have asked for actual evidence instead of going along with insinuations. She wanted absolution, wanted me to say it was okay, that mistakes were understandable. I told her she'd helped destroy my reputation and traumatize my daughter based on nothing but gender bias and groupthink, and hung up before she could respond. The parents' committee disbanded quietly after Vanessa's arrest, the remaining members distancing themselves from the situation. The league director called to apologize for not standing up to the committee's demands, admitting he'd let them run roughshod over policy because he needed their volunteer hours and registration fees. He asked if I'd consider coaching again, maybe for a different age group, and I almost laughed at the absurdity. Even with vindication, even with the lead accuser exposed as a hypocrite and enabler, my reputation was permanently tainted by months of accusation. Maya asked if we were going to move again now that people knew the soccer thing was wrong. I told her no, that running away wouldn't solve anything, that we needed to rebuild here instead of starting over somewhere else. But the truth was, I didn't know if rebuilding was possible when the damage had been so thorough. We'd both learned that being a single father made you suspect, that wanting to be involved in your daughter's life could be reframed as predatory behavior, that institutions would sacrifice individuals to avoid conflict with angry parents. Judith called about potential civil suits, now that Vanessa's credibility was destroyed and other committee members were distancing themselves from the accusations. We could probably win damages for defamation and emotional distress, maybe even get the league to pay for enabling the harassment. But Maya was finally starting to stabilize in therapy, finally starting to sleep through the night without anxiety attacks. Dragging everything back into the light through litigation would traumatize her all over again, and I couldn't do that for money I'd probably never collect anyway. 6 months later, Maya tried out for the school basketball team and made it. The coach was a woman in her 50s who'd been teaching at the school for 20 years, and Maya felt safe with her in a way she couldn't with male coaches anymore. I went to her games and sat in the stands with other parents who mostly ignored me, the soccer situation still hanging in the air, unspoken but present. Maya played well, smiled when she scored, high-fived her teammates. She was healing slowly, but the damage was permanent in ways that would probably affect how she saw men in authority for the rest of her life. I never coached again, because the risk wasn't worth the reward when one group of determined mothers could destroy you without evidence or due process. The system that was supposed to protect children had been weaponized against someone who just wanted to help, and there was no real accountability for the people who'd done the weaponizing. Vanessa got probation for her role in enabling child abuse, while I got a permanently destroyed reputation for coaching soccer. Justice existed in theory, but not in practice, at least not in ways that made any real difference. 2 years after the soccer incident, Maya graduates from middle school with decent grades and a small group of friends who don't know about what happened in Riverside. We've learned to be careful about my involvement in her activities, to stay in the shadows where single fathers are less threatening. Some nights, she asks why we can't just be normal, why other families don't have to worry about this stuff. I tell her the world isn't always fair, but we're stronger for surviving it. She nods like she believes me, but we both know that shouldn't have been a lesson she needed to learn at 12 years old. And watching your kid grow up too fast because adults failed them is a special kind of heartbreak that doesn't fade with time. If you enjoyed this, you'll definitely want to see the next ones too. So subscribe now and let me know your take in the comments.